Hey everyone, welcome to this week's reading of Empire of Serpents with myself and PD Mac. We are picking up with 5 and 6, so we are jumping right into it. Chapter 5, Gwen. Treason! Gwen heard the word reverberate off the walls of the tavern as she watched the guard with the sword crash into the wall. The table bounced off him and struck the floor and broke, sending splinters flying in every direction. The other guards were momentarily surprised, but they quickly recovered their wits and drew their swords. Gwen grabbed onto Kalen's arm again and jerked him back just in time to keep him from being skewered. Blasted pigs, Kalen shouted, trying to break free of her grasp. We need to go, Gwen said darkly. She summoned her strength rune and pulled Kalen across the tavern. Two of the guards hurried after them, while the other one helped his fallen comrade. Gwen was considering using her fire rune next, but the patrons of the tavern blocked the soldiers and kept them at bay. She spotted Poppy behind the mob. Next to her was an older man who watched the unfolding chaos with an unamused expression. I'm sorry, Gwen shouted, then hurriedly tossed a few coins onto a table and pulled Kalen outside, dragging him along behind her. I haven't had this much fun in a long time, Kalen laughed. You think almost getting stabbed is fun? I saved your life back there. Nah, even if his blade would have hit me, it would have bounced right off. I've got the steel skin rune. The what? If you stop pulling me, I'll show you. Gwen glanced behind them. The guards hadn't gotten free of the crowd yet, but she doubted it would take much longer. Show me when we get back to Venya. She released Kalen's arm, and the two sprinted until they reached the wheat field, then cut across it and plunged into the woods. Venya, Gwen called out. We need to move. The dragon was in the clearing, her tail flicking back and forth. What is it? This fool started a fight with some Atorian soldiers. We need to leave, now. Venya lowered herself so they could mount her, and then she launched into the air. Gwen was angry at Kalen. What he'd done was stupid and irresponsible. She punched him in the back for good measure, then hissed in pain. Kalen wasn't lying. The skin was hard, and her knuckles stung. Told you, he shouted over his shoulder. Venya's climb through the air plateaued, and she continued flying northeast. Why did you start a fight with those guards? Gwen demanded. Why not? We have enough problems, and we don't need more. And what did you say to the others? Why did they look at me and raise their drinks? I told them who you were, Kalen replied, and that we were going to take the fight to Torian. Our attack is supposed to be a surprise, or at the very least, have him looking one way while he gets crushed from the other. If you ever do that again, you'll need more than steel skin for what I have in store for you. Is that a threat or a promise? Kalen teased. Gwen bit her tongue. Kalen was hot-headed and didn't care if he crossed the line, and arguing with him would accomplish nothing. She avoided speaking to him until they landed. Gwen assumed it was so that Venya could eat again, but as she climbed off the dragon's back and looked around, there was a feeling of familiarity that came over her. Where are we? She asked. On the border of Olivelle, Venya answered, glancing around uneasily. She sniffed the air. What's wrong? Gwen also surveyed the area, but she didn't see anything. Kirith and his army should be here, but I can't smell them. Unless they are using magic to hide their presence, I don't think they're here yet. That's impossible, Gwen said. Eridor sent word to Kirith before the meeting was over. Maybe the message never arrived, Kalen suggested. We're in trouble if it didn't. Gwen chewed on her lower lip, thinking. We need to find Kirith. If his army doesn't march with us to Isentol, we don't stand a chance. I'll go, Venya said. You two stay here. I can fly faster without having to worry about you falling off my back. Gwen didn't like the idea of waiting around, especially not with Kalen, but it would take her too long on foot. That, and she didn't know where to find the forest city. Go, but please hurry. Venya sped off, the treetops swaying from the force of her wings. Gwen stared off into the woods. She tried not to think about what would happen if Kirith's forces didn't come through. Without an army to attack from the east, there would be no diversion from Connell's approach. Have you heard from your sister? Gwen asked. She tried speaking to me before we left Haddon's, but I ignored her. You what? What if it was something important? I'm sure it wasn't, Kalen replied. She probably just misses me. We don't separate very often, and when we do, she badgers me for attention. Honestly, it's exhausting. I just enjoy getting away from time to time. That's fine and well, but next time she reaches out to you, answer her. I need to know what's going on with my brother. Gwen could feel her irritation rising again, and she took a deep breath. There was something about Kalen's attitude that exasperated her to the point of rage. Gwen paced in circles while they waited for Venya to return. Her nerves eventually calmed, and she looked at Kalen. He was sitting on a fallen tree, weaving leaves and thin vines together into a crown. He plucked a white flower and placed it in the center of the crown, then noticed she was staring at him. Here, he said, holding out his creation. I made it for you. Is that an apology? She asked, walking over to accept it. Hardly, he laughed. I don't apologize for being myself. Gwen looked away, a little embarrassed about her anger towards him. The man was infuriating, true, but maybe she had judged his character incorrectly. She took the crown and set it atop her head. How do I look? She asked. Ridiculous, Kalen replied, but he smirked. If you had pointed ears, you'd look like an elven queen. So you aren't always a complete idiot. That's a surprise, Gwen returned his smile. She felt that statement was somewhat true anyway. Kalen placed a hand over his heart, a mock look of pain on his face. You wound me, your majesty. Gwen rolled her eyes. Show me the rune you mentioned. Kalen reached down and pulled his pant leg up to reveal a rune that looked like a sword wrapped in ivy. This one has saved me many times. What other runes do you have? Gwen asked. Why? Are you interested in trading magic? Possibly. I'll show you mine if you show me yours. Things like that made Gwen want to punch him in the mouth, but now that she knew it wouldn't even hurt him, she just glared at him instead. You're too serious, Kalen said. Try having everyone you love be murdered and see how happy you are. Kalen's smile faded. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't know. Don't worry about it. The silence turned awkward, and Kalen suddenly pulled his shirt off, revealing several runes in random spots across his chest and even one on his stomach. Gwen didn't have any of them, which made her wonder just how many runes were out there. This one unlocks doors, Kalen said, pointing to a rune shaped like a key. Of all places, it was located over his heart. Spiked ball, wind breath, shield, healing, animal manipulation, telepathic communication. He named them off as he pointed. And this last one will be a real benefit when we encounter Torian's prestiges. Gwen peered closely. The rune looked like an open door. What does it do? She asked. It absorbs magical attacks. That will definitely help. Gwen expected Kalen's body to resemble Amel's, but she was surprised to find he didn't have many runes. Are you searching for more? Not really, Kalen replied, shrugging. I like what I have. His brow furrowed, and he tilted his head curiously. I don't know how I missed it, he said. Missed what? The lines in your eyes. How did you get a dark rune? It's a long story, Gwen said. I'd rather not talk about it. Give me the dark rune and you can have any of mine. His words had an eager tone to them. No. Just like that, huh? No counteroffer or anything? No, Gwen repeated. The silence resumed, and Gwen went back to pacing. Then you should have been back by now. Had she run into trouble? Were Kirith and his people under attack? Did Torian's arms reach this far? There were too many questions and not enough answers. There, Kalen said, shattering her thoughts. Gwen looked to the sky and saw Venya returning. The dragon swooped down and landed. Kirith was on her back. When he saw Gwen, he leapt off and rushed to her, wrapping her in a hug. It is good to see you are well, he said. Same here, Gwen replied. Where's your army? We're marching on Isentol now. Now? Kirith sounded surprised. Yes. Did you get Eridor's message? I didn't get anything. A heavy weight fell onto Gwen's shoulders and she sighed. I don't know what happened, but we need to go. Connell and his forces are heading for Isentol as we speak. We were to attack from the east and provide a diversion. Now we have a problem. I can gather my people, but I will need some time. That's the one thing we don't have, Gwen said. We'll raise an army on the way, Kalen interjected. Gwen stared at him incredulously. What? What? You saw how those men responded in the tavern? In a small farming town, they gladly stood up to those guards to help you escape. People are tired of Torian. All they need is a little nudge. Gwen looked at Kirith. He's got a point, the elf said. Kirith was a male, so of course he would side with Kalen. Gwen looked at Venya questioningly. I agree with Kalen, she said. Kirith's army will come, but not quickly enough. You'll have to convince your people to rise up against Torian. Gwen thought they were all insane, but it did seem like their only option. Where's the nearest town? Westpin. It's a few hours from here, Venya said. If I fly fast enough, we'll cut the time in half. Gwen looked at each of them. Fate or destiny, or possibly death, was tightening the rope around her neck, suffocating her. She had to make a decision, but she didn't want to lead innocent men and women to be slaughtered. Connell's words echoed in her mind. Anyone willing to join us is more than welcome. We'll leave our fate in the hands of the people then, Gwen said. Kalen, let your sister know what's happened and get me an update from Connell. We need to be in sync now more than ever. Kalen nodded and stepped away. I trust you are still committed to this task, Gwen asked Kirith. You have my oath, Kirith said. Gwen turned to Venya. What of the dragons? If there's 11 of you left, where are the others? They're heading to Isentol, Venya answered. That fact gave Gwen some solace, at least. We've got another problem, Kalen said. Corliss says that Connell and his army are attacking a city called Blazington because Torian's army has crossed the border into Tir Monarch. It's one thing after another, Gwen complained. Can you use your telepathy rune to contact other mages? It depends on how far away they are, Kalen replied, and I need to know their name or their general direction. The Great Library is where she should be. Her name is Marjorie. I'll see what I can do. Kalen sat on the ground and closed his eyes. I hate to leave you with this situation, but I must gather my people. We will meet you in Isentol, Solara willing. I understand, Gwen said. Maybe we'll stay alive long enough to see you again. Kirith bowed his head and left, sprinting into the woods. Gwen watched Kalen, occasionally glancing at Venya. The dragon remained quiet but returned her gaze. Finally, Kalen's eyes opened and he stood. Marjorie says a force of prestige has left the Great Library already and are headed to Isentol. She's going to tell them to meet us in Westman. Thank the gods, Gwen said. At least we have magic to battle magic. We should make haste, Venya said. The faster you can spread word of the coming battle, the more people will join our cause. Gwen motioned for Kalen to mount Venya first, but he shook his head. Take the lead, he said. Gwen did so, and Kalen sat behind her. Hold on tight, Venya said, then launched into the air. Once they were gone, Amel stepped out of the trees. She watched them fade in the distance, and then opened the letter Eridor had penned. She'd intercepted the message hawk by accident while magically teleporting to Olivel. Amel read over it again, then tossed the parchment aside and activated her rune. It was time to cut the head off the snake.
Chapter 6. While Lork and his story sent scouts out patrol the surrounding area, ensuring none of the enemy had escaped, Connell, the two mages, his battle captains, and bodyguards set out to find the enemy commander. As they made their way through the streets, Madeline caught up to Corla, grinning confidentially at her. Don't worry, dearie. I won't steal your man away from you. He's not my man, she huffed. And even if he was, I doubt you would be a threat. Oh, sure of ourselves, are we? She smirked at her. Corla stiffened. I don't know why he wants to bring you along. I can handle it. Like how you helped when he attacked the city? She parried with a feigned innocent grin. He didn't need my help, Corla tartly replied. Of course he didn't, she chuckled. I'd already helped him. Pursing her lips, Corla picked up the pace to catch up to Connell. Connell was having second thoughts about inviting the old woman, but she was resourceful, and he needed a mage, someone unafraid to do what was necessary. That she seemed to enjoy picking on Corla might be a problem. He'd wait and see. Still, having two mages with him was more than he had expected. They found the commander slouched in an imposing chair set on a platform in the reception room of the burgomaster's residence hall. His hands draped over the armrest, a spilled drinking horn on the floor by his feet. The eyes, glazed over in depth, stared at the far wall. Connell was the first to notice it. A beautifully cut obsidian stone set in gold filigree on a neck chain dangling from his neck. Reaching for it, he startled when Madeline slapped his hand away, placing her other hand between him and the stone. You don't want to do that, young lord, she warned. If you don't want him to know you're here. Why? Don't touch it, Madeline commanded, glancing around the room. Retrieving a cloth napkin on a bureau by the wall, she wrapped the stone inside the cloth before casting a look back at Corla. Go ahead, tell him. Tell him what? Corla replied, confused. About the stone, Madeline prompted. What about the stone? Madeline frowned on her. You sure you're a mage? Yes, came the indignant reply. Enough, Connell interjected. Why don't you tell me, Madeline? Casting a suspicious look at Corla, Madeline explained as she pulled the necklace over the dead man's head. It's a linking stone. Linking stone? Connell and Corla said in unison. Yes. She gave Corla a look of disappointment. You have much to learn, dearie. I'm not your dearie, Corla shot back. Just stop, Connell commanded. What does a linking stone do? It's a connection, young lord, between two people. Usually a mage or a wizard that was at one end. The man holds a stone like this. She held the cloth in her hand, and when he does, it tells the mage that he is ready to talk. How? They're too far apart. Lorcan said. That's why it's called magic, dearie, she replied with a twinkle. Once the connection is made, the mage then commands the man to do his bidding. If the mage is strong enough, he can use the man's eyes to see what he sees. By the gods, Story snarled. No, dearie, she smiled with on her lips. God's got nothing to do with this. What should we do with it? Lorcan asked, shifting a worried look between the old woman and Connell. Connell knitted his brow in thought. Can the mage be fooled? I mean, suppose someone took the stone and pretended to be the commander. Could the mage be fooled into thinking he was still controlling the commander? Madeline's eyes widened. I know what you're thinking, young lord. Answer the question. Madeline paused. Yes, it is possible, but it'll work only as long as the mage believes he has the right man. Pray that the mage is distracted, for he can plumb the depths of the pretender's mind. The mage discovers the deceit. Pretender is as good as dead, for the mage will destroy from inside out. Connell nodded, inhaling a deep breath. Where's the tallest building in the city? We're in it, Lorcan said. Remember? We saw the tower above the walls. Good. Connell turned to the dwarven commander. Story, I need you to hide your army so that no dwarves can be seen. What are you going to do? I have a plan, he answered. Lorcan, you take your army and assemble them outside the main city gates. What are you going to do, my lord? Lorcan asked, his concern obvious. Going to have a little chat with a certain mage, he replied. No, called Burst, you're crazy. Connell's face hardened and he jabbed a finger at her. You and Madeline are with me. The rest of you, go do what I ask. Glaring at the bodyguard, he commanded, and you all stay here. Are you sure he wants to do this, young lord? Madeline peered intently at him. No, I'm not sure, but I have an idea and I have to try. Now, please, we're wasting time. But my lord, no buts, Lorcan. I know what I'm doing. Do you? Corliss sharply replied. You go with General Story and stay out of the way, he snapped, immediately regretting his anger when he saw the hurt in her eyes. Madeline led the way through the burgomaster's citadel. Been here often enough. Always wondered what the view was like at the top. Connell opened the door for her, letting her slowly lead the way up to the spiraling stairs. Though chafing to get to the top, he calmed himself, praying that his gambit worked. Anything I should know about working the stone? She paused on a step above him to look over her shoulder at him. It is dangerous what you plan to do. If it works, fine. If not, she shrugged. Resuming the climb up, she said, hold the stone loose in your hands, just the fingers touching it. That way, if he discovers who you are, it's easier to drop the stone. Tell him what he wants to hear. Butter him up real good, but don't overdo it. Remember who you're supposed to be. She pushed through the door at the top of the stairs and stepped out to the narrow walkway around the spire. Connell stepped out behind her, immediately feeling vertigo, causing him to firmly grasp an iron railing. Are you okay? Yes. He swallowed and forced himself to relax as he gazed out over the city walls to the forest in the distance, then down to the streets littered with bodies. You sure you want to do this? She gave him a hard stare. Yes, he resolutely answered. Unwrapping the stone, she slipped it over his head, careful not to touch the stone. Touch the stone with just the fingers of your left hand. The mage will know you're there. Obeying, Connell touched the stone and felt an immediate tingle up the arm, into his shoulder, and up his neck, and into his head. His vision clouded to almost black. Then a voice spoke inside his head. What? Ah, there you are. Where have you been? I'm where I'm supposed to be, Connell replied. Don't get smart with me. Did you do what I asked? Connell paused, trying to think the right answer. What's wrong with you? Connell forced himself to relax, calling in the deception skills he learned as a highwayman. I'm a little drunk, he giggled. Drunk? Where are you? The voice snarled. Blasingden. Did you destroy the city? Of course. Let me see. Connell bent his head to stare down at the streets. The weird feeling of someone else using his eyes sent a shiver up his spine. Good, good. Yes, stop. I see uniforms. Who are they? They're the ones I've been chasing. Managed to corner them here in the city. Where are your soldiers? Outside of town. Kind of lifted his eyes to stare off into the distance beyond the city walls. Why? All the ale's gone. Don't be a fool. I didn't send you there to lay around getting drunk. My soldiers needed a break. Besides, the ale was free, and so were the women. He snickered, conjuring up a woman, an image of a woman he had met a year ago, hoping the vision would be convincing. Focus, damn you. You're wasting time. What's the rush? Are you that stupid? I chose you because you were useful. Don't make me regret my decision. Connell felt a flash of intense pain and exploded into his head. Ow! Okay, I'm sorry. Are you finished in Blazington? Yeah. And get moving. Where am I going? Has the ale befuddled you that much? Kind of felt rising irritation in the voice. He needed to be cautious. I'm a little disoriented. Disoriented. Now there's an interesting word. I'm surprised you were able to use it in a sentence. Kyle silently berated himself for forgetting who he was, pretending to be. I'm not stupid, he indignantly replied. Of course you aren't, the mage said, with not so subtle sarcasm. Calm yourself, Fearon. You still have work to do. Go north. Hafkin waits for you. You will join her and attack Gorwick. I want that city destroyed. Let me know when you have succeeded. Which one of us commands? Connell demanded, as though affronted he was not specifically named in charge. The mage chuckled. Vanity, vanity. Does it matter? She's a proven leader. And so am I, Connell huffed. Why must I submit to a woman? I didn't need her help laying waste to Blazington. I will acquiesce to your request this time. Do not try my patience again. Yes, master. That's better. Say it again. Yes, master. One more time. The mage sniffed a laugh of derision. Yes, master, Connell droned, feeling an intense lethargy permeate his body. Laying the cloth over her hand, Navin snatched the stone with one hand and slapped him across the face with the other. Yow! He stalled, a hand in his cheek. What was that for? You were starting to lose yourself. What do you mean? Mage was beginning to exert control over you. How'd you know? Madeline peered intently into his eyes, examining them, finally nodding. You're fine now. I could tell by the voice you used at the end, like someone drugged. Well, did you discover what you wanted? Yes, Connell replied, reasonably sure he didn't want to try that experiment again. The dead commander below is named Fearon. Madeline cocked an eyebrow at him. I could have told you that. You didn't need to do this. She held up the cloth wrapped around the stone. And I also learned that Fearon is on his way north to join Hafkin and attack Gorwick. Madeline grinned at him. I didn't know that. What are we going to do? We're going to head north, he replied. He started to turn, then abruptly stopped. Who do you think was the mage at the other end? Can't be sure, she thoughtfully replied. Few mages got that power. My guess it was probably Grimmer. You were lucky this time. Don't think you ought to try it again. Not a problem, Kyle agreed. Come on, I need to tell the others. 20 minutes later, he stood in the middle of the armies with Madeline, Lorcan, Story, Galadir, and Corla, whose insolent look told him she still wasn't very happy. Voldar and Targrith, who were not formally invited, stood at the edge of the group. Cuddle smiled at them and motioned them closer. The enemy here is supposed to be heading north to join forces with a woman commander named Hafkan for an attack on Gorwick. We will head north to join them. We're going to join and attack Gorwick? Targrith blurted. No, my friend. We're going to destroy Hafkan and her army. I have an idea. It's going to require us making believe we are Fearon's army to come help her. Once we destroy her army, we head to Isentol. It's about time Torian learns he is not in control like he thinks he is. Easier said than done, Story commented. What's your plan? We'll need scouts well out in front so that she doesn't know who we are. The scouts, when confronted, will need to play the part of Fearon's loyal soldiers. She won't suspect anything if she believes we are who she thinks we are. I like it, Lorcan nodded. Gives us a chance to assess and deploy. We don't know how big her army is, Story pointed out. I know, Connell agreed. But surprise is always to our advantage. Besides, we have 2 powerful mages with us. While Madeline preened, Cora's insolence vanished, replaced by a sudden feeling of overwhelming inadequacy.
It's getting good. All righty. Well, that is it for this week. So keep your eyes peeled for next week's video, and we will continue our weekly reading. See you guys.